Okay, my name is Brooke Williams, and I go to First Church of Christ in Grayson, we took a trip to the Dominican Republic, like Tiffany said, in the last week of June this past summer, and a group of 21 of us went, 11 adults and 10 high schoolers. And the intent of the trip basically was we went with a mission called the West Indies Christian Mission. And what they do are they have established like 5 or 6 different churches there. And they go back sporadically several times a year and check on them, kind of like Paul did in the Apostles. They went back. After they had established a church, they went back and checked on them, and they wrote them letters, and they encouraged them, and they helped them to grow, and they gave them just different ideas of how to reach people. That's basically what we partnered with this over the 8 days that we were there. So we were able to, our main focus of the trip was to do VBSs. We did 2 VBSs a day for 3 days, and we visited 5 different churches and several different kids. I think altogether, at the end of the week, we came in contact with 600 different people, adults and kids, and teens, all ages. Our group here is, my name is Brooke, then there's Miranda, Johnlyn, which is Tiffany's friend, Kaylee, and Reagan. And this is just a small group of us. Like I said, there were guys who went on the trip, but there were mostly girls. But one thing I want to start out with was one of our main struggles this week that week on the trip was the language, of course. Very few of us spoke any Spanish, sí, yes, no. Just, little words we knew. But that was our biggest obstacle for the week, was how do we communicate with these people? Well, I think there were lots of charades going on. We did a lot of pointing and acting out things to the kids as we were trying to teach them crafts and different things. We did have 2 translators who helped us, a girl named Paula and a guy named Jonathan, and they were a great help, of course. I was one of the teachers who did the lesson. Each day there were 3 of us who tag teamed, and one of the ways I chose to help communicate with the kids and the parents who were there was and we taught on Zacchaeus all week. So that was our thing. We just did the same thing at each church because we saw different people. So we taught on Zacchaeus and what it meant for Zacchaeus to get out of the tree and come, visit with Jesus, and what it meant for Jesus to recognize that Zacchaeus, who was a tax collector, who was hated among all these people, what it meant for Jesus to recognize that he was there and want to have a relationship with him, and how he seeks that with all of us. He comes and he went and he fellowshiped with the sinners. We're all sinners, but he didn't just go to the ones who went to church, or who followed him. He sought out those who didn't know him and who needed him the most. So, and Zacchaeus was one. So here I got some pictures off the internet, and I just kind of showed these as I went through my lesson, and of Zacchaeus and him fellowshipping with Jesus, and him being sad, having a repentant heart when he realized he was doing the wrong thing, and then how he had lots of money because he stole money and all that stuff. I know we probably all know, and how the people were sad because Jesus didn't come be with him. But then when Jesus changed him, Jesus changed Zacchaeus, and then he was a new man. And praise the Lord, that's the same hope that we all have. So that was our lesson, and that's why we did Zacchaeus. We did that every day. We sang lots of songs that had to do with that, and we did learn some Spanish songs to sing with them. And but the language barrier, but love, everyone can show love. You don't have to use words to show love. So that was our main focus, was to show love and to have a smile on our faces and just be willing to have a relationship with these people, even though we didn't understand each other. So that was our main language while we were there. Another awesome thing that we got to partake in that week was worship. Worshiping with another culture, with another language-speaking people is awesome. It just, to hear Spanish, to hear English. We did sing some of the same hymns, so we were able to sing in our own language in the same room, which mostly were really tiny churches, about probably half of the middle section here. I mean, just like a garage is kind of what it was like. One of them was just a block, cinder block, didn't have open windows, no doorway. I mean, it was just no door. I mean, there was a doorway, but it was just a really tiny place, and it was just packed full of Dominicans, and then, the 21 of us. But it was just so simple. They didn't have very many instruments. There was a drum sort of like this, probably on a bigger scale. They had tambourines, and they had this little thing. It's called a guida, but it's like a cheese grater is what it kind of reminds us of. It's a metal thing. It kind of had a grate on the side, and they used any kind of a metal thing like a whisk or something to that effect to make the noise with. And it was really cool how they could really make those simple instruments just be beautiful. And how we can just worship, no matter what language it is, we can worship in our hearts and in our minds with people all over the world. So now, I'm going to turn it over to Reagan, and she's going to talk about flexibility, because that was a huge thing on our mission trip, was flexibility.
Hello, my name is Reagan. I'm a senior this year at East Carter High School, and this is my first overseas mission trip. So obviously I was really nervous, but also I had this sense of calm because I knew, well, we have this planned out. At first we thought we were just going to do a couple of VBSs at a few churches, but when we get to the Dominican, we find out that our entire schedule was different. So it was at first very concerning. I didn't know how we were going to do it. It was our first day. We were exhausted, just ready to go to sleep. But the group that we went with, it was really great because we just went with it. We stayed up really late that night and combined lessons and worked on what we were going to do with the puppets and what we were going to do with the songs. And overall, we found out that we reached way more kids with this than if we would have gone with our original plan. And it really just hit me that was God's plan for us. He wanted us to reach this many more kids, and it really just struck with me that we were ready to change for that. We were ready to go with God's plan. And it makes me think about Luke chapter 12, verse 35 through 38. It says, "Keep your shirts on, keep the lights on, be like the house servants waiting for their master to come back from his honeymoon, awake and ready to open the door when he arrives and knocks. Luckily the servant whom the master finds on watch, he'll put on an apron, sit at the table, and serve them a meal, sharing his wedding feast with them. It doesn't matter what time of the night he arrives, they're awake and so blessed." And it really just hit me that God saw that we were willing to change for him, and he blessed us and these people so much more because we did, and we just went with what was happening. And I know it's really hard to do that, especially, for me, I like to plan things out, and I like to see what's going to happen, and when something changes, it kind of worries